So in 1981, the expectations were really on you to win that national title, and you struggled in the short program only to come back in the long program and nail it. Now, this is something that happened several times throughout your career. Is it easy for you being the underdog and being that fighter? And why was the short program such a struggle for you sometimes at big competitions?
Well, I didn't really think that I always came back from the short program, but now that you mentioned it, I definitely did in the two most important competitions of my life. But I do think it was something that I learned from. So not skating well in the short was my mistake because maybe I was overly confident and I didn't focus. I just felt like I just was going to do it, and I learned from it. But I definitely think it was a learning experience, something I'll never forget. And I can teach that now, with other kids. And especially, in your mind, knowing that you are the best. You have to believe that even if you do make mistakes in a short program or in anything, you learn from it and you'll never have that happen again, because you can't learn unless you make mistakes. And I tell this to all my kids. To fall is to learn. To not have everything go well is to learn. And that's what makes a champion sometimes, because I do think, for me, having not gotten up from wherever place I was in, I would not have gone into the long program and been successful and land everything. You need some sort of inner soul searching to make it happen, and focus a little bit more and really be like over yourself and not being overly confident. So I learned from it, and I do think in the 84 and 94 nationals, I did not let that happen.
Now, you went on to finish second at the 81 Worlds, right behind Denise Spielman. After that finish, how much pressure did you feel to become the world champion the next year? Did you feel like it was your time?
I definitely felt like this was my year. I definitely may have, felt like, okay, all I have to do is just skate great. And I do know that I trained for that. And then, winning, second place at the Worlds gave me so much attention that I was doing so much more than training. I was doing so many TV shows, so many commercials and things that, I wasn't really prepared for, and not training as much. So that year was very difficult for me. But when I went to the nationals and knowing that I did well in the figures and then to have a little mistake in the short, it was very overwhelming to have a mistake happen so easily. And I do know that really it kind of made me feel like not good in the way of my mind, was not confident anymore. And so I lost a little bit of confidence, and that's something that, is very hard to get back. And then, of course, what happened in the long was just unbelievable to me, that I could never imagine. It was like I don't even remember too much about it, but it was a blur. But I just don't know what happened, because I've never, even after that national championship, ever did that again. But I think it was just a moment of inconsistency and not being confident about myself and determined enough, because I was distracted by too many other things.
Elaine, you talk about some of the distractions after the 81 season. Did you feel any pressure, external pressure from either your parents or your coaches? And now that you had this spotlight on you, how were you able to keep your mind focused on the ice?
It was hard. I mean, a lot of things after I did win the Worlds, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, you talk about after the 81 season, that when you placed second at the Worlds, that you had that focus now was from the press and the media and whatnot.
Yes, a lot of things happened. I got a lot of sponsorship. It was a little bit of pressure for sure. But I think there was a lot of personal issues going on with my family, my parents getting divorced, and, my social life outside the skating world was not really focusing on the right issues for me. And I didn't really have anyone to turn to talk to. So I definitely think that was the main reason why that year did not go well, because I wasn't mature enough to handle it on my own. But I do think that I learned from it, and I never look back on that and never regret it. But it was something that I do think I wish I had a mentor that was a champion that could have taught me how to overcome all the adversity outside the ring. So I think that year was the reason why I did not skate well.
You talk about those 1982 Nationals as being a really difficult competition for you. What was it like competing as the defending national champion and having to put your title on the line?
I didn't look at it like, oh, I'm the national champion, I'm here to win again. I actually felt like all I had to do was skate my programs the way I always do in practice, and I would win because of the fact that I had 6 or 7 triples, and I had more triples in my short, and so I never really worried about anyone else beating me. But I never really thought that I was going to make any mistakes. I always was very confident in myself because that's what my goal was in life, to be confident from what I learned in my past, that I was very shy and self-conscious about my foot. So I felt like now I got my confidence, I am here, and I'm just going to skate and I'm going to do it. So I wasn't really worried. And I think maybe I should have had a little bit of nerves. I don't know, but I definitely think I was overly confident, and that was what did me in.
So you will forever be known as a world champion. Yet, in Elaine Zayak fashion, the 1980 Worlds proved to be a dramatic event on TV. After struggling in the short program, you had a breakdown before you competed your long program that day. What were you afraid of that night going out on the ice?
Of course, it was the same feeling only a month before at the Nationals, where I fell 3 times in the long program. How did that happen? And I trained really hard, so I'm like, how did that happen? I never did not train, but it just happens sometimes when you lose a little confidence. So to me, I felt like this is going to happen again, and I did not want to embarrass myself again and be put through that traumatic experience again. So knowing that I didn't miss something in the short, that, oh, here we go again. So it was just a replay in my mind. This is going to happen again because I don't have the confidence. How am I going to get that confidence back? And I broke down so many times that night, and I just said I don't know what it was going to take for me to gain my confidence back, to go out there and skate a great program. I just did not feel it in my heart, in my soul. I was like, what am I going to do? And I had so many people come into my room, and like Fritz Dietl even came into my room, and he did actually give me some words of advice and say, you know, you've come a long way in your life. Don't quit now. So that kind of really inspired me to know that a person that I knew from 3 years old said something like that. Not like, oh, you can do it. Like everybody's like, you can do it. I'm not wanting to hear that. All I wanted to hear is that you are a champion. You always will be. Don't go out as a quitter. And I was like, you're right. I got to just go out, and if I fail, I fail. But I cannot go out and just not try. So when I felt that, I said, you know what? I'm going to just do it now. I'm going to do it. Whatever I do, so be it. But I'm not going to just not do the long program and quit. Because I actually wanted to, but I thought in life, I'll always regret not knowing if I could have done it. And thank God for the fact that one person could have just said something from my past, that you were never a quitter before. Why would you do it now? And that's the truth. Never doubt yourself. And thank God I decided to go out there the next day and do it. And it worked out well. And I think because I cried my eyes out the whole entire night and morning, I was so exhausted. I had no nerves really in me to get nervous about it. It was like, go for it, like go down hard or go strong. And I went for everything, and it worked out great.
So take us back to that long program. Take us what you were thinking about when you were skating through it, catapulting from 7th after the short to win your world title.
Like I said just before, it was very dramatic, and I actually wish there was like social media and I could have recorded what I was thinking, because it was unbelievable what I went through. And to me, it was only me and myself putting myself through misery. I was putting the doom and gloom on myself for reasons that weren't necessary, because I was the champion. I was somebody that had won and made it, and I just felt like I was no good anymore because of the press and missing. And I wish that I could have maybe had a little bit more confidence, but I think in my life, always having people look at me, the kids, and I was young. So at 16, I did feel self-conscious still, and a little afraid of failing and having people look at me in a derogatory way. So most importantly, that was my fear. It wasn't of failing. It was that people will look at me like a lot of kids looked at me when they saw my foot. So I didn't really want to go in that place anymore, so I wanted to avoid it at any cost. And I didn't care about skating at that time. It was kind of more of an inner soul searching about how I didn't want to go to that point where people were like, oh, she's so bad. And, you know, in my mind, it was like, oh, like the kids are so vicious. Like, why do you have two toes? What's wrong with you? And so I kind of felt like, why am I not landing my jumps? It was like that whole scenario of, why can't I do it? And, you know, there's no reason for that. But, you know, you really, it's all mind over matter, mind over your body. And I totally take that with me through my whole entire life to this day. And nothing really, and thank God that this has happened to me, because the fact that I can go in life now and not worry about a thing